Well, here it is, the beginning of week 4. I trust you are all well and finding some good purpose and meaning in for your journey uh, as you work through the various activities of this course. From your thoughtful, sometimes wonderful discussions, I'm pretty sure that you are all finding the course to be both challenging and helpful. There are a couple of points of information, actually 3 points of information that I want to share with you before I get into talking about the coming week. First, let me clarify again that we're not doing any online live sessions during this course. You'll note that one is called for week 4. Disregard that. Part of that discussion is actually built into the discussion questions for this week. Second, some of you have wondered about the grading, especially as it relates to grammar and such. Well, I'm an English teacher. I think I warned you of that at the beginning. And after umpteen decades of teaching grammar, I just can't help myself. And I hope you can find it helpful. I hope you'll take the time to check out those corrections. I spent a lot of time working on them, and I'd like to think my time is valuable. But if you pay attention to those errors, more importantly, especially the ones that repeat, it can help you to erase some of those mistakes from your writing. And if you ever have questions about why about the corrections themselves and why I changed it or fixed it or whatever I did, feel free to write me and I'll explain to you. Third, you are all doing really good work, but I want to encourage you to go deeper. Personal reflection is hard and sometimes gritty work. When you make observations about how your life has changed you or how your life experiences motivate you, be sure to also ask why. Why is that connection there between that historical event that happened when you were a child and who you are today? How can I trace that? It's important for you to state those convictions so that you see them even more clearly. It's not as important for me to understand the why as it is important for you to understand the why. Well, enough of that. The regular discussion topic for week 4 continues our thinking together about heroes, and asks you to reconnect with all 3 films in a kind of bigger picture sense, drawing some more general observations that we might think of as takeaways. What are you taking away from this study of these 3 films and the storyline and the persons that are the protagonists, heroes in the movies? But before, and I want to emphasize this very strongly, before you develop your response to the discussion questions, be sure that you watch the PowerPoint presentation titled The Archetype of the Hero. You'll find this in the section for week 4 titled Required Learning Resources and Activities. This PowerPoint will really help you to respond to the discussion within the context of an important understanding of how the hero is understood and what the role of heroes might be. I've also added a couple of clips from one of my favorite movies, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Sometimes I think we should be using this movie instead of The Fellowship, but no, not so much. These are really added kind of for the fun of it, but they do connect really well to the discussion and to the PowerPoint presentation on the archetype. You might find them helpful. Be sure to watch them in the order they're listed in Moodle. First, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade 3 trials scene, and second, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade choosing the Holy Grail, the whole scene. Make sure, really encourage you to watch those because it really sheds some important light on the archetype and on the importance of choice in the lives of heroes. Well, the third installment of your life map takes place in week 4. Its theme is spirituality. Since this can be kind of a vague term for some, I want to provide a little additional help. First, spirituality is kind of a generic term. Therefore, it is broad and often not very helpful. We often confuse religion and spirituality, and there is a connection, but it may be helpful to understand that all religions have a spirituality, which is a sense of appreciation and how one lives in the world, but not all spiritualities have a religion. So usually we talk about a Christian spirituality or a Buddhist or Muslim spirituality. However, in general, here's a helpful way of thinking about it that was provided by the University of Maryland Medical School. Here are some bullet points they have, and I want to remind you that the script for this video is posted on Moodle as well, so you don't have to try to copy all this down, but I think it might be helpful to you to hear this. Spirituality has been defined in numerous ways. These include 1, a belief in a power operating in the university that is greater than oneself. 2, a sense of interconnectedness with all living creatures. 3, an awareness of the purpose and meaning of life, or that life has a meaning and purpose. And 4, the development of personal absolute values. For me, these are my absolute values. It's the way you find meaning and hope and comfort and inner peace in your life. Although spirituality is often associated with religious life, many believe that personal spirituality can be developed outside of religion. Acts of compassion and selflessness, altruism, the experience of inner peace, these are all characteristics of spirituality. Someone would say that the idea of a worldview is another way of talking about spirituality. This is how I see myself in relationship to others. This is how I see myself in relationship to nature. This is how I see myself in relationship to the world. I hope that helps you connect with this really vital concept as you go to work on your own thinking about this. So, in other words, to say, well, I don't really have any religious experience is not an excuse for not engaging that part of your map, because you all have a spirituality, whether you know it or not. This week also ends our exploration of significant philosophers. One of my favorite writers, a historian named Thomas Cahill, talks about moments in history as hinge moments, when civilization goes through some fundamentally worldview shaking change. I think that's also a good way to think about all of the philosophers we've engaged in this course, but especially with the two that we're looking at this week, Descartes and Sartre. With these two Frenchmen, we enter the modern era and some decidedly different ways of thinking about the world. In this case, you will work on both of them and fill out a chart that you will find on Moodle. Descartes is considered the father of the modern era. Sartre is an existentialist. The way these two men approach philosophy is fundamentally different than the 4 people we've talked about before. I'll be interested in hearing your thoughts about them. By the way, in the name of honesty and full disclosure, the notification at the end of the Sartre video about a last-minute conversion to Christianity is a fabrication. The rest of the video is really good, and so we've decided to keep using it, but that is certainly not verifiable. Not sure how it got into the video, and as soon as we find one that we think is worth replacing it, we'll do that. But for now, simply disregard that. Finally, I need to call your attention to week 5. There's not as much work to do for this week, and remember, we're dropping the synchronous sessions, but the focus for this week is a kind of a so what focus. Be sure to look ahead to week 5. Think about the assignment titled Personal Ontology Presentation. This is a very important final project. It grows really out of all the work we've done, but especially out of your life mapping. I encourage you to check it out as soon as possible, and if you have questions, direct those to me as early as possible. Well, that's enough, and that's a lot. Talk with you soon, and keep up your good work.